Hello, my friends. Welcome. I hope you're having an amazing day. It's Heather. This is the Back to Me podcast. It's my favorite day of the week because it's Friday. And that means I get to talk to someone super awesome, my celebrities. And this week, my super amazing celebrity is Suzanne Culberg. Did I say it right?
You certainly did.
I did. And I love even more that you are the Nope coach. As soon as I saw your information that said you were the Nope coach, I said, I have to talk to this lady. And okay, we're talking all the way from
Sydney, Australia. So it's
Sydney.
the future. We're already Saturday here.
Right? I love that. It bends my mind. I like things that bend my mind, that it's already tomorrow. Hey, how was it like tomorrow? Is it a nice day?
Future's looking good.
The future's looking good. I mean, it's just turned fall here, so it's just turned spring there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. I love that. And today we're going to talk the truth about self-care. What is it for reals? For reals, what is it? But Suzanne, okay, I know you've done a few things in your life, but how did you get to be the Nope coach?
I love this question, Heather. It's like a long story or short.
Oh, anywhere around there is good.
Anywhere in between. So it's funny. Normally I've had very poor boundaries. So I think we teach what we most need to know is a common phrase. But I read something the other day and said, we teach what we most need to learn so that we can learn it. And I have nominally struggled to say no, being kind of the yes woman. So yeah, it came about from my own people pleasing tendencies when I was just like feeling done and saying yes externally, but inside screaming no.
How far did you have to crash before you finally said no?
Oh, that's such a good question. I love it when people ask, like, what was the pivotal moment or what was the turning point? Because I didn't have particularly one. There was like a collection. Kind of like I describe it as like sitting on an
Machine
ant's
gun.
nest. Sitting on an ant's nest and you get stung and you're like, ouch. Oh, but that's not enough to move. Ouch, that's not enough to move. And then finally you're like, no. So just lots of little things where people would just be like, could you just, or just assuming, oh, Suze will do it. Suze will do it. And sometimes I could, but sometimes it just became too much. And then I realized, I can't remember. This is a great question. I think I was somewhere and someone asked me like what hobbies I had. And I was like, who's got time for hobbies?
Oh my gosh.
What is these hobbies that you speak of? Isn't that something you do when you're a kid?
Or retired?
Like, yeah, or retired. And it's just kind of like hobbies. And I was filling in something and I had nothing to say. And I was like, something's got to change here. So yeah, it was like hobbies. What would I like to do? And then I thought about things that I liked to do when I was a kid. And I remember my parents going, there's no money in that. Like we weren't encouraged to have hobbies. It was
oh
like,
my gosh, no.
So it was like, if you're not good at it, then don't do it. Or if you can't make a career of it, then don't do it. And I was like, oh, where do we, and I have my own children and I love watching them play and I was going to say make mess. I don't then like cleaning it up.
You could teach them to clean.
Oh, well, trust me. This is something I thought this morning as we hit record before I came in. I was in the bathroom. The kids have their own. I'm fortunate to have an ensuite, but I was in theirs because it's close to my office. And I was like, yeah, we need to have a discussion about cleaning later today. But yeah, it was just kind of like a collection of moments where I was realizing that I just felt like a taxi or a cook or a cleaner or a sounding board or a whatever. And I was like, what do I actually like to do? I don't know.
And it's so interesting that it wasn't even people asking you to do something that kind of was your final, maybe not final, that, oh my gosh, what do you like to do for fun? And you went, well, what? I don't have fun. And when you realize that, it's a strange thing to like, especially if you've done it for a while where you've just filled your days, you can't even imagine. I'm speaking from my own, I'm just speaking for myself. Can't even imagine what you free time, right? And um life goes so fast. Like, we just finished our
Yes.
summer and someone said, "How was your summer?" I was like, "What? It was summer?"
It can go so fast, and I love the work of Gretchen Rubin. She has this quote, and she's like, "The days are long, but the years are short." And it's
So
so true, because in the moment of a struggle or a hardship or something, it feels so long. But then you look back and it's like it's gone really, really fast. Like, I was just admiring yesterday, my son came out like fully dressed, done his own hair. We were going trampolining, and he was like, "I'm ready." At like 6 a.m. The place doesn't open till 9. But anyway, I'm so impressed. I was like, look, he just did it all. Socks and shoes, hair, like the works.
and they
And I was like,
matched?
yes, he is a fashionista.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
I don't know if you can call him a male or a boy that, but potato, potato, and he's very unique, but everything has to match. And he always often says to me, "You can't go out like that, mummy," which I laugh at because I'm very kinesthetic. As long as I feel comfortable, I don't care. Whereas he's all the visual with the matching and the
Right,
colors. And
right.
so
That's
it's the
awesome.
funniest thing.
But imagine, like, how long ago were you changing diapers?
I know. Well, we call them nappies here. It's so funny.
Nappies.
But because my kids said diapers the other day, I'm like, where did you get that from? What were you watching? Because we don't
Right.
call them that here. But that's the exact thought I had. I was like, not that long ago, it would have been changing the nappy and trying to get them to get their shoes on. And what takes 5 minutes now would have taken an hour. So yeah, the time goes so fast.
And now they're ready 3 hours in advance, but it has to be something fun,
It
right?
was so much fun because my daughter's very adventurous and she's a climber. Naturally, she's a little bit older, but my son is very hesitant. And when we got to the trampoline place, there was like a kids ninja warrior course. And my daughter was like straight up there. And my son was like, "Oh, I want to, but like, I don't know." And he's really anxious. And like, what if people laugh at me? And I'm like, "What people? We're literally the only ones here," which was
Right.
awesome. But it's so roundabout. Like, as an adult, we do this with things. What if I
Oh,
fail? What if I
totally.
fall? And I said to him, like, just do your best. And he's like, "What if I don't make it?" And I'm like, "Well, then next time we come back and your best gets to get better." And it was just such a lesson for me in that moment too, like in business, in life, in things that we do. What if we fail? What if it's not good? What if this? And it's like we always do our best, and our best gets to get better. So and anyway, eventually he got up the wall. I've got a video of it, and I was so proud, and I put it on Facebook. And yeah, he's just
And
yeah, he's
he'll
over
be
the
even
moon.
better.
Yeah, well, there's 3 tiers of walls. So he got up number 1. Next time we go, he can attempt number 2. My daughter did, I don't know how many attempts at number 3. She went straight up number 2, number 3. Eventually she got it. But then she was tired. She's like, "So next time we're going to start with the walls before we do the trampolines so that they have more energy." I love how they're
Yeah.
just so knowing of all this, whereas I'm just like, eh.
And and it's interesting. So it is true, like, when you see clients, because your daughter is like, just charges in and just does it and doesn't care. And then she might be the person who ends up forgetting to say no at some point in her life.
Yes.
And then your
Yeah.
son is the hesitant, "What if I fail?" So he forgets to say yes
Yes.
to life,
So true.
because there's 2 sides, you know, and
It's
you
so
have
funny
both.
because I put it on Facebook and I said, "Guess which one takes after me?" But it is in like the athletic one, my daughter's after my husband, and the more whatever. But in the other way, yes, she takes after me, as in bull at a gate. Sure, let's go. But doesn't actually pause to say, "Do I even want this?" Because I think
Right?
that's sometimes too. If someone says, "Can you?" in the past, I'd always say yes, because yes, I can. But do I want to? And I
If they
think
said, "Will you?" instead.
yes, but isn't it interesting? But also too, I think sometimes we feel that we're letting people down, or we don't want to be rude, but they can always ask someone else. Like, we're not the only person that they can ask. So it's just interesting to pause and run it through our filters. Like, do I have capacity for this? Because that's another thing I tend to do, say yes to too many things. Then be like, past Suze who said yes and current Suze who has to deliver are 2 different people.
Yes, exactly. It's the boss who says yes to all the projects and then tells the employees, and the employees say, "What? Who's gonna do that?" The boss is like, "Yeah, yeah, we'll do it. It's fine." So
Yes.
your CEO needs to be reined in a little bit.
Oh, 100%. I recently rebranded and I was like, oh, this is going to be fabulous. It'll be finished by July. And I thought that was a generous deadline. And I was just saying to you just before we hit record, and this is September now, it went live a couple of days ago. And I was like, I really underestimated how long this would take and how much it would take. Because I think sometimes too, we don't really realize how big of an endeavor things are. So yeah.
And I have to, because we were just talking before I did this, that I just did that 110K kayak. So sometimes we don't realize how big it is. Sometimes we don't realize how big it is. So so because there's two sides. It's like, oh, you said I'll be done in July. It'll be fine. And you don't recognize how much work has to go into it. And sometimes, because I just did something recently where I was talking about my learnings from my race, was sometimes you don't set a big enough goal for yourself because you think it's too big,
Oh, yes.
right?
We tend to do this big pendulum swing with so many
Right.
things in our life. Because the other thing I was going to say with the big goals too, because when you told me about your kayaking, I was like, how long did you sleep for afterwards? And it wasn't as long as I expected, because sometimes we don't factor into the recovery or rest time on the other side. So with my website, my next project that I want to do is my next book, and it's school holidays here now, and my kids are actually going to go and stay with my parents. And I was like, oh, fabulous. I'll just, throw out my next book. And then I'm like, actually, I'm probably just going to sleep.
It's true. We don't I know I hardly ever factor recovery time in for things. And let's talk self-care. Yes.
Yes.
Self-care, so important. So you asked me how long I slept, and I probably slept 4 hours, and then I got up because I woke up because my circadian rhythm said it's time to be up, it's daylight. And then I was doing things, I'm like, "Hold on, I'm really tired." So I went back to bed again. But in all reality, I mean, I paddled for 19 hours. I probably didn't feel better until Tuesday afternoon. But, like, back to my somewhat self, work out the kinks, get some rest, get some nutrition back in. Because I think I calculated I burned something like 8,000 calories, and I
That's
did not eat that many calories on the route. And we also forget to celebrate, because what did I do? Because I told you when we came on, I said, "Oh, yeah, they said that I was a badass." I said, "No, I'm not," and then I was on to the next thing. We don't recover and we don't celebrate when we're being whatever version of super amazing we are. So how do we how do we find that permission for that space?
I think a lot of it too is, as you said, permission. Because sometimes, like, we have this phrase in Australia called tall poppy syndrome. Are you familiar with it?
No, I want to know it.
Because I say it to my clients. Sometimes my clients are global, and they're like, we learn universal language in my program. Because this last round, we were talking about the difference between American and Canadian Thanksgiving, because I know nothing. I'm from Australia. So anyway, I said something unrelated about tall poppies, but basically it's how we cut down people who shine bright or people who achieve. And it's like, don't get too big for your britches, or
Oh,
don't be a
yes.
braggart or anything like that. And so often I think many of us are afraid or conditioned to be afraid to celebrate, because we'll be told, don't brag, or, or the famous nice for some.
Right. Oh, yeah. Fine for you.
It's so hilarious when I hear that now. It used to make me immediately go into defensive or tearing it down mode, or like making it less, like, you rode however many kilometers or miles, you're a badass. And you're like, oh, it wasn't that much, like we downplay. And so now it's funny, when someone says, nice for some or must be nice, now I deliberately pause and I go, yeah, it is. And the reaction I get to that is so good, because it is nice. But the reason it's nice is not to be bragging or sarcastic or cheeky, though I'm a little bit irreverent. It's to acknowledge.
That's why we get along.
It's to acknowledge, it's to pause and celebrate. It is nice. Like, my kids are going to my parents for school holidays. It's going to be fabulous. This is the first time I've been away from them for a stretch, because we live interstate. My parents are actually from Tasmania, the little island down the bottom, and I live in Sydney. So, and it was funny, I was chatting to my dad yesterday, and he's like, so the kids come on Tuesday? I'm like, yes. He's like, so I'll see you on Saturday then? And I was like, have we got our wires crossed? Like, I was really panicking for a moment. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, oh, you'll miss them so much, you'll be on the plane. I was like, no, I won't.
Obviously, you're mistaken, Dad.
Exactly. He's like, we'll see. And it's so funny because he's like, you'll miss them. And I was like, I've never had a chance to miss them. Like, because I've never been away from them.
Right?
It's funny, but I love my children dearly, but I have never been the mum who misses them while they're at school. I think I know that they're safe. I know they'll be taken care of, and I've got stuff to do. Action taker. So, like, I appreciate people who do, but like, yeah. So I don't know. We'll see if I miss them, but I know that they'll be taken care of. They'll be having a fabulous time, and I'll see them in 10 days. And what I'm really most looking forward to is when I like clean up after a meal. And then I go about my business and I come back, the kitchen and the dining room still being clean, not all the stuff under the table or the toys strewn everywhere. I'll be like, oh, I know myself.
That's awesome. and it's good. I think it's amazing that you have just said, yes, I'm going to take some time to rest and have like indulge in that time. It's funny we call it's not indulging. Why is it indulging?
This is
Why
the thing. Self-care is often labeled with indulgent.
right?
And I
I just
love
did it.
that. Yeah.
I
And
can't
I
believe
love
I
that
did it.
when we realize it, because the thing is, what's interesting, like I work with a lot of people who overconsume in some way, often overeaters. I'm a foodie here. But it can be over scrollers, like, compare and despair, doom scrolling, Facebook, Instagram, over workers. I kind of do that one as well. Over shoppers, over, like, there's so many ways that we over. And the thing is, I believe the reason that we do that is because we don't have true self-care. So we indulge in these other things. And I think where food becomes the most, not dangerous, but the most insidious of them all, is I haven't got time to have a nap or rest or sit in the sun for 5 minutes, but girls got to eat. So you can kind of see how you can take on these behaviors and kind of justify them to yourself. But if you're eating when you're not hungry and you're eating things that aren't truly nourishing and you're eating as a way, like that's this faux shadow self-care.
And you're eating as your reward. Like, I worked for a whole
Yes.
hour. I'm gonna go have a donut
Yes. And it's
or
like, what
brownie.
do I really want? I'd love to sit in the sun. It's like, I haven't got time for that. But you've got time to go to the shop to pick up your donut or brownie or stand in the pantry and eat it. So it's really interesting. Like, a lot of the work I do is to show people that the reason we end up over consuming is because we spend so much of our time over giving. Giving and receiving
Right.
are paired, like inhaling and exhaling. You can't have one without the other. So if you're constantly giving, yes, I can do that, sure. Like, what do they say? If you've got a task to do, give it to a busy person.
Yeah, because they don't know how to say no. And
And then we end up coming out sideways, staying up late, binge watching Netflix, eating all the stuff, saying I'll start again tomorrow. And that's how it comes into balance. And it's like, so people are like, well, what do I do? It's like, you learn to say no. And it's a process. You learn or relearn to say no, because toddlers are really good at saying no.
oh yeah, that's right. The best. And they know what they want. And they
Exactly.
don't feel they're not worried about upsetting you
No,
by no, right?
they're
So
decisive.
we grow into this weird space where, oh, I don't want to upset them by saying no. I don't want to disappoint someone by saying no. But if you're saying yes to them, then you're saying no to you,
Yes. And when
right?
you say yes to keep the peace, it's often the war that starts within and the war that we placate with food or shopping or, staying up late.
Internet games.
Yeah, Candy Crush or whatever. Yes.
I'm raising my hand slowly every now.
But the thing, have you read Untamed by Glennon Doyle?
No.
Oh, best book. I've got it on Kindle, book, and audio, Audible. I love it more than anything. She has this line in the book that I swear changed my life. But then again, I changed my life, but that was the impetus. Because I always get frustrated when people say, oh, you changed my life. I was like, no, take responsibility. You did it. Anyway, the line in the book, she says, basically her daughter, she's got 3 kids, and her son played some form of sport, I can't recall, and he wanted his sister, so her daughter, to try out for the team, and her daughter didn't want to. And she was talking to Glennon about it, her mum, and she's like, well, I don't want to disappoint him. And the line is something along the lines of disappoint as many people in the world. Like, your job in life is to disappoint as many people in the world so as not to disappoint yourself. And the daughter says to
Wow.
her, even you, Mum? And Glennon's like, yeah, even me. And it's like, yes, because when we say yes to keep the peace, or we don't want them to be mad at us, or we don't want to disappoint them or whatever, and we are saying no to ourselves, then we're disappointed. And I
Yeah.
think that's why we get to a point of burnout or overwhelm, or, leading into, sadness and grief and all this stuff, because we don't even we don't even know. What do you like to do? I don't know.
Right?
And it's just kind of like, whoa. But we put ourselves last so much that, yeah. And I think it's fascinating. But people, we aren't the arbiter of other people's feelings. It's like, I'm so disappointed in you, and it's like, no, you're disappointed, full stop.
Yes.
What I did or didn't do doesn't contribute to that. Like, let people take responsibility for their own feelings.
And I've, because I was speaking with a client about this earlier this week, being it's going to be uncomfortable when you start to practice your no, I call it's a muscle. Like I say, you got to exercise your no muscle, and it's going to be uncomfortable, but that's only for a minute.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
another
you
quote that I love.
move.
Brene Brown: choose discomfort over resentment.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. That's a good one. She's awesome.
So it's really
And
uncomfortable to say no. And, sometimes you'll get off the phone or go back in your house or whatever, breathe into a paper bag and be like, but when that point goes and you're like, oh, I don't need to bake 3 dozen cookies for the school sale, or I don't need to help somebody pack their house, or I don't, in that, it's like, oh.
the relief is, and even take that brief moment to recognize, yeah, I said no, hooray.
Yeah, it's
Like,
back to the celebration we were talking about.
yes.
Like, celebrations, I think also too, in our society, like, self-care is often massages and essential oils and bubbles, and celebrations is like, I made this much money, or I lost this much weight, or I got a new job. It's like, no. In my world, in my program, we celebrate everything. And it's so funny. Our current round just closed, and this lady's like, I thought you guys were so weird in the beginning, like, so weird. And she's like, now I love it, because we tend to get on this up. And I start every single call with celebrations, and I love it, because without a doubt, everyone will look around the Zoom room and kind of be like, ugh. And one person will be like, oh, they've got something. And then someone else, and then someone else, and then someone else. And it just becomes this uplifting, like, words can't describe it. And then it's like, oh, because when we focus on it, we remember, oh, and then I celebrated this, and then I celebrated this. And it's just like it's a mood.
That's
Whereas
awesome.
it's always going down, like, oh, this person cut me off in traffic, and this person shortchanged me. And like, we're so societally used to that.
And you're
But the
so easily pulled down, like pulling down, the crabs in the bucket thing. Like,
yes.
maybe it's like the puppy, what's it, tall poppy
Tall
syndrome?
poppy syndrome. And that's the thing too. Why are we so easy to let something ruin our good day? Like, we're having a really good day and one little thing happens and we're like, oh, this day's ruined. But we don't let a good thing ruin our sadness. Like, you could be like ruminating about something and something good happens. You don't be like, oh my gosh. You just like, oh, you just dismiss it or ignore it. So I think the job and
Are
the work
we
for
are
so
we
many of
addicted
us.
to being are we addicted to feeling down? Or like, we're not psychologists, but by the way. But
But
but it
it's
is.
just things to think about. But also too, in terms of effect and how we are, when we're excited, we tend to have a really open posture and like this. And when we're depleted or sad, our shoulders tend to curl and we lean forward. Where are we most of the time when we're holding our phone? You guys call it cell phone, we call it mobile phone. We're
Yeah.
leaning into that, like, more things, scrolling, reading about all the news and all the terrible things that are happening. So it's just, something to be mindful of sometimes. For
Right?
me, actually putting down my phone or finding a song, dancing it out in the privacy of my own home. But
Dance
like,
on the street, who
changing the state.
cares?
Well, actually, I was dancing in the supermarket the other day. It was so funny. I had my earbuds in, didn't even think. Self-checkout things become all the rage here, and people are usually yelling at them. And I'm just like, and then I look up and all these people are looking at me, and I was like, same as in traffic. I live in Sydney. So on peak hour, what would normally take 15 minutes can take 45 or more. And so my son and I, we have carpool karaoke, dance. And it's so funny looking at all the cars either side of us, looking at us like, what are they doing? And I'm like, well, we can sit here frustrated and mad that we have to wait forever, or we can make it into a party.
We could make it fun. We could make it fun. And just for 1 second to go back, so you had that comment that you made that, one thing can ruin your whole day, but we don't do the opposite where one thing can make your whole day amazing.
Yes.
So I don't think that energy is harder to hold.
We're just
Like-
not trained for it. Like when you talk about building a muscle, we
Yeah.
haven't built the muscle of this.
Let's build our awesome muscles to be and I remember this story about a guy who was depressed and feeling down, and he went to his yoga therapist. I don't know if you know the story, and so his therapist said, can you just, I have to write this. I don't have time to talk to you. I have to write this article for this important newspaper. Can I just give you this camera? And can you do me a favor and just go take some pictures of people who are happy and just come back when you're done? And of course, his staff was all upset because he gave a camera to some random stranger. But the story, I'm assuming it's true because someone important told me, the guy didn't come back, but he came back a year later. And he said, I'm sorry it took so long. It took me a little while to find pictures of people that were happy. But when he came back, he was like completely changed, and he was happy because he went looking for happy, and he was taking photographs of it. So it's like that. If you look for red cars, you're going to see red cars. If you look for crap, you're going to see crap everywhere. If you look for awesome things, you're going to see awesome things. So, I mean, part of
a personal example of that very recently. So I published a book. I self-published a book, and the other
what's it
day-
called again?
Oh, how's the language on your show? It's the beginning is shh.
You can say it. I drop those bombs all the time.
I was going to say the beginning is shit.
There it is. That's what it's called.
So the other day I was having a look at my reviews. They say as an author, never look at your reviews. But anywho, I got my first
Come
1
on,
star.
they're just lying if they say that.
I got my first 1 star, and my immediate response, and I'm celebrating this, Heather, was like, oh, I'm a real author now.
Right?
Whereas in the past, that would have unsettled me, that would have, set me off or whatever. And like I did have a bit of squidginess afterwards, but I love that my first reaction, like looking for the positive and everything, was like, there's a full spectrum of reviews. I'm a real author now.
Right? It's true. The first time I got a hater on one of my podcasts who was criticizing because I was talking about that money was just an exchange of energy, and that it was okay to talk about money and say you want money, and they started attacking me. I'm like, yeah, I got a hater.
Yeah. The first time I did it, I got a hater. I did the Shake It Off dance, Taylor Swift.
Did you? Nice. I like the Shake It Off dance.
But I think that's the thing.
That's,
we to talk at once. Yeah.
we have lots to say. You talk. You go. It's your show.
I was going to say, it's not a reflection of us. It's a reflection of them and what they have going on, or even their interpretation. Like, I love it sometimes when people say, like, you don't understand. And I was like, I understand. I don't agree. There is a different thing. And I can see it in my own life. I remember someone recommended this book to me that I bought in 2015, Power versus Force. I can't remember who it's by, but I started to read it and I was like, this book's crap. Like, I couldn't even finish the first chapter. I was like, oh my goodness, what on earth were they thinking? This is nonsense. Like, I didn't go and leave a negative review because that's never been my style, but I just put it aside. And then like 3 years later, for whatever reason, I can't remember, I think somebody else had mentioned it. I was like, oh yeah, I've got that book. I dug it back out. I read the entire thing cover to cover like that day. The book had not changed, Heather. It's been sitting on my shelf for 3 years. So I think sometimes, we change, and that's the whole thing of cancel culture and where we go. And that's the thing, one of my pet peeves is, as soon as someone says one thing that you don't agree with, you have to tear them down or whatever. Couldn't like with my program, I have 8 modules, and I'm like, if you open one and it's not for you, leave it on I call it the sushi train.
Nice.
And pick up another dish. I think sometimes that's how we end up in some sort of codependency. Once again, not a psychologist, but we have to either agree with everything or not. And it becomes really weird. We have different opinions about different things. That's okay.
It's actually good.
That's
because
healthy.
how can you grow? How can you change? How can you find something new, a new perspective if we're all the same, right?
Exactly.
And
Yes.
there are people who I've disagreed, like, I can just even think because of my age, like, in the past where I'm like, "Oh my god, are you kidding?" And now I'm like, "Oh my god, of course." You know, right?
Parenting is the best example for that for me. I remember being, "I'll never let my kids do that," and I was like, I was the world's best parent before my kids were born.
Right? I can't believe oh my god. And it's all context and experience, and I find it funny that you weren't maybe the message in it was not your message at that time, but and then it came your message later, right? The book that you decided to actually
Yes, and
read.
also the book that you write too, because sometimes, as entrepreneurs or the things that we put out, we no longer agree with, or we're no longer like, I've done a total rebrand. I don't do what I did before, but that doesn't mean that that work isn't valuable to the people who are still there. Like it's no longer aligned with necessarily what I teach or what I actually coach on. So like I haven't like people like don't want to delete all your old stuff or start a new Instagram or start a new Facebook. I'm like, no, that stuff still is of service and value. It's just not, where I'm going now. And I think sometimes, people often ask on podcasts when I guess now, what is it that you do? I'm like, today
Right?
or right now, because yeah, I don't want to be like I didn't realize how many things I'd done in my life until somebody asked me about like my career journey the other day, and I was like, whoa, yeah, a bit of a jolt, like jack of all
Right.
trades. But I used to get really I don't know, shameful on myself about that because my husband went to uni, did his degree, and has worked in that field for over 20 years now. But in the world, it's funny, someone's saying to me, we have both. We have the hummingbird who flits around and pollinates everything, and then we have the jackhammer who drives down. And sometimes they're married to each other.
They're totally married to each other because 'cause I'm the same way, right? It's just like, I am the skipping stone skipping across water going, "How about some of this? How about some of this? How about" I'm at the buffet of life, and some people just eat off the à la carte menu. I just want this. So, I remember us talking about this when we first had our conversation, the similarity between how many things we've done. We weren't
Yes.
competing. We weren't competing. We were just comparing. But it is true, and I think it's important to have both of those because you need the jackhammers to dig deep and put some solidity in while we're up here bouncing around like ping pong balls. And but sometimes I have found in the past, I felt like I criticized myself, like he was like, "Oh my god, I've done so many things. People are gonna think I'm a flake." But and s I like to think of it the other way now. It's like I have so many different views of like, I've looked at it from so many angles now, and that just gives me a different kind of depth of depth of perspective than
Yes.
a single always stood in one spot perspective.
Some people really have the depth, and we more have the breadth.
There we go. You got the words. You got the words. Yeah, and I think it helps as I mean, because we're both coaches, it helps us relate to the people who come to us. It's like, oh yeah, I mean, as I've been a massage therapist now for 14 years, and I always joke with people when they come to me. I say, "Oh yeah, I've had that injury." I joke with them. I injured myself this much to help you understand how to recover. Not really, but it's like I've
Yes.
done all we have done all these experiences in life to help like fill our experience bucket of like, "Oh, you have that going on? Yeah, I got some of that right here. I
Yes.
understand, and let me help you through navigate through that in whatever way is going to work best for you." I mean, I don't tell people what to do, obviously, because that would be my way, not their way. But yes, coach. I mean, we're just coaches are just trying to help people find their way and stop being stuck in their stuff,
Yeah,
right?
and offer a different perspective or an alternate thing. I love how you were do you still do massage?
Yes, I
Yes,
do.
because when you think about it, what two different, like, things could you get? Because a massage, is quite passive, as in they lay down and you're the one doing
The
the
work.
massaging, the work, and they're like receiving. Whereas coaching, they're doing the work. We're asking the questions. It's kind of like, it almost reminds me of a plumber. Like when you hire a plumber to come to your house and they're like, it's $1,000. And you're like, it took 3 seconds, and the part, you look at the invoice and the part was like $10 and it was $990 for whatever. And
Right.
with coaching, it's like all you did was, some people who don't get it, all you did was ask a couple of questions. It's like, yeah, it's knowing the questions to ask, to
Right.
unlock. Because how many times has someone told you something and you've been like, yeah, and it's never really landed? Whereas a coach asks it so that you can have it, because someone tells you what to do, you'll be like, yeah, no, and go and do your own thing and make a mistake.
Right.
But a coach can ask the question to find the insight. And I can't remember the number of times that somebody said something to me, or even my own clients, and I talk about overgiving and overconsuming and how they're linked. And we worked together for ages, and one day the penny just drops. And they're like, did you know? But that's the difference between a teacher or a lecturer or a podcast where you listen and go, oh, this sounds fascinating, and I get it conceptually, and then actually going and living it experientially and having the coach like walk the path alongside you, but yeah, not carry you, not massage you, not do it for you. Because like my original niche was weight loss. And
Right.
I don't know how many people would say, if only I could afford a personal trainer, a chef, like someone to walk around after me and slap biscuits out of my hand. And I was like, do you know why that wouldn't work? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, because you would just fire them. When your inner rebel and your petulant teenager comes up and you're like, I'm going to eat everything, you're fired.
Right.
Then you just hire someone else or hire them back. And it's like, it's never having enough resources. It's like doing the inner work, and somebody can support you with that, but they can't do it for you.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to make that decision yourself, right? It's if you want something to be different, have the resources to help you, but they can't do it for you at all,
Exactly.
whatever the
Yes.
change is. But it doesn't mean you can't, because one of my lessons from I did a podcast recently with the things I learned doing 110K kayak race. One of them was bring people with you whose strengths counter your weaknesses, right?
100%. Yes.
And sometimes you don't know what I think usually people do know even though they won't admit it, where your weak spots or your blind spots are. So being okay with bringing someone along who's going to step in and just be the yin yang for you to help you see that, and bring a friend who can lift you up
And I
when you're
think
crashing.
that moment too, Heather, is so how I'm going to link this to this. Not that long ago, a few months, my VA left, and like a virtual assistant for anybody not in the coaching world.
And I was like, oh no.
Yeah, and I was really sad. I was like, oh my goodness, that's my support person. That's, the behind the scenes, that's everything. And I, was a little bit, flummoxed. And then my own coach, because I believe a coach without a coach is like a doctor without a doctor, very recently, because I still haven't found like the right person. And actually, I think I have now, just we're in discussions. But the coach pointed out to me, similar to what you said, like the person having the strengths where you're weak or whatever. She's like, that VA was lovely and amazing, whatever, but was never going to help you up level your business to where you want to go, because she couldn't hold the bigger vision. So like when you hire a person, a coach, a VA, an assistant or something, if they can't see past the level that you're at, like, and I think as a coach, sometimes people say to me, like, how can you hold the vision, or how can you see what I can't see? And I'm like, this is exactly why you hire me.
Yeah.
Because if I'm like, oh, you could never do it, that sucks, don't worry.
Yeah.
Why would you pay them?
Right.
So it's kind of like this person had reached the capacity of where they could support a business, and my business wants to go to here. And so I need somebody who has that vision and strength. And I think, sometimes in life, like if you spread this out, I can think of friendships that kind of faded out, and we can be like, what did I say, or what could I have said, or all these sorts of things. And it's like the season of that friendship was over. I like that reason, season, lifetime analogy. And it's like nobody did anything wrong. Nobody is bad. It's just like we have this, and then it allows somebody else to come in and fill that space who's going to walk the next chapter with you.
And we don't always have to have right. Like we try to be very digital, right and wrong. There doesn't have to be rights and wrongs. It's just this is done.
Yeah.
next thing up. And it's true, if you don't have people with you on your journey that can't help you hold that bigger vision, then on the times that you're tired or things aren't working or technology is crashing or crap is happening and you're struggling to hold that yourself, then that's when you need to be able to call on those people to help you keep keep it going, right?
Yes, and also being clear on who that person is. So if you're not in a position, like I know not everyone is in a position to hire a coach, and I understand that, but don't assume. Like for me, my husband, I love, but he's never my support person for anything business related because he's the jackhammer who's had a higher job and he doesn't understand. So, when I have the moments, which we all do, I call it my business period. I'm going to quit and get a job because it happens like once a month. He is not the person I go to then. And I think it's knowing, and it comes back to like being the nope coach and stuff. I used to inadvertently be that support person for everybody in my life. And it wasn't like, oh, well, if you don't pay me, you don't count or you don't matter. Or it's not that at all. It's that we each individually only have so much capacity. And so like now that I do have really strong boundaries with my friends, if they have something going on, they need to ask me first, like, are you in a position to listen to me vent, share, like, can you hold this right now? And sometimes that's a no.
Right.
And in the beginning, when you start to do that with people, some people will fall away. Some people will get angry. Some people will have all sorts of things. But other people, when they really appreciate it, that you're modeling it. And when you have really good boundaries, then it kind of gives them permission to do it as well. And yeah, I love it when I get a message now. It's like, do you have space or do you have capacity or do you have time or can you hear this? And sometimes I'm just like, no. And it's like, okay. Or I'll be like, circle back, like this week here, there's been a disjointed week in Australia with a random public holiday and all sorts of stuff. And somebody wanted to talk to me and I was like, yeah, no, can you reach out again on Friday, which was yesterday, and they did, and we had a chat then. But like, no doesn't mean not ever go away. It can often just mean not right in this moment. And I think that's something that we can all be mindful of. And it's something we can say to people too, like, hit me up next week.
Yeah. Just because you're super busy in the moment doesn't mean go away and never talk to me again. And I like that you mentioned that if you exercise your boundary, your no muscle, and you can make it normal, normalize it so that people go, oh, I can do that too. Like being that model, that person for that, I think that's amazing. I'm going to cough too right now.
Yeah, you're all good. And I think that's the other thing too. It's so permissive because other people, like, if we have had the conditioning that is selfish or, you should work until you drop. So I have days of my business where I coach and then days of my business where I do behind the scenes, writing, replying, admin type stuff. And it wasn't that long ago that I looked at my like to-do list and all of it was important, but none of it was urgent, like nothing that had to be delivered that day. And I wanted to just go to the movies. Like it was just really bizarre. So I was like, that's it. Took the day off, went to the cinema. It was funny, in the middle of the day, all by myself. I was literally the only one there. It's like I have dominion over this cinema. It was fantastic.
That's awesome.
But then the next day, because I had replenished and, rested, watched a movie, had a nap, done all this, I was fire. I got so much done. Whereas other times where we do push through and we ignore, I'm tired and I need a rest, I don't know about you, but I tend to have to redo it. It's not that good of work anyway.
Yeah. It's like you're just trying to plow through.
Yeah. It was like I've put in the wrong number on the invoice or I've sent it to the wrong person or I don't know, something, because you're not really there. And it's like I became an entrepreneur so I could get away from the 9-to-5 slog. Like, yes, technically this is my work time, but also according to me, I'm a terrible boss to myself sometimes. It's like, why not just take it? And then, we push through until we get sick and then we have to take time off. And it's okay then because we're sick, but we don't enjoy being sick, whereas I enjoy going to the movies.
And we don't even often wait until we're done being sick.
Oh,
like
yes.
we we come back before we're really fully recovered because I don't have time. I have things to do. People are depending on me, right? And
Yeah, one of my clients just went on a holiday, and I asked her before she left, like, how much of a holiday is this really going to be? And she's like, yeah, it's going to be a holiday, Sue. It's going to be a holiday. And we had our first session back yesterday, and apparently she took her laptop. I knew she would. And it kind of like died on like day 2. So she was like, I had nothing, like absolutely nothing. Had the best time. Come back, was like, am I going to have a business? Like, is everyone going to be fired me? Or like, and the thing is, what I want to normalize, we all have these thoughts. There's nothing wrong with us. There's nothing that we have to fix. We can all have a moment of, and then it's just like that calming and reassuring of, oh, it's okay. And other people too, it's kind of like they're relieved. If you're like, actually, I've got to look after me, then it's like, oh, wow, they admire somebody with really good, strong boundaries. And it gives them the thing to go and find someone else too. So, yeah.
right. And you mentioned earlier that your program just ended. When does your how long they're not how long are they?
For 10 weeks.
10 weeks.
And talk about self-care and boundary setting. People ask why I run them the way I do. I run them on the school terms. So in Australia, the school term is 10 weeks, and we have 4 terms a year. So we have a 2-week break between this round and the next one for the next school term. And at the end of the year, have a nice 6-week break for the summer. And it's funny, people like, because I tend to do some sort of masterclass or free training 5-day experience between the rounds, and some people are like, oh, well, that doesn't suit me because it's school holidays. And I was thinking, if you want to work with me when it suits you, love, that's when you pay. That's boundaries for you,
Right.
But this school holidays, Heather, it's so funny, although I totally have the space because my kids aren't even going to be here, I was like, I just don't feel like running anything. I'm tired.
Then
I'm not. And people have asked, oh, are you doing the thing? And I'm like, no, but why wait starts? Like, if you want to come do the program, it's running. But yeah, no, I'm taking some me time.
That's outstanding. I love that you're actually doing what you're learning, what you're teaching.
Part of
And
me's freaking out, part of me's panicking, like that part, but the other part is like, I need that rest so that the program is the most awesome. If I go into the program tired and depleted, it'll be good, but it won't be
Right.
excellent.
And when does
even
the
if,
next
like,
program start?
10th of October.
That's soon.
It's soon. So I've got 2 weeks to, and then we'll be ready to go again. I teach it what I call seasonally, although they're artificial seasons because they're 10 weeks. But we start with the spring of the intention setting and what do we want to gain from this round, and what are we here for? And then the summer of the consistent and persistent action. And then the autumn, or what you guys would call fall, where we harvest and celebrate. Because this is, as we're linking back to what we very first were talking about, in our society, we don't tend to have. And so often people don't celebrate because, well, I haven't reached my goal yet. But I'm like, no, we celebrate the process. We celebrate the commitment to showing up. We celebrate, like, I think it's something I talk about in the program, but when we were kids, the game of hotter and colder, like somebody hides something. And anyway, we play as individuals a game of hotter and colder with the universe. And so say we do a program and we didn't turn up. We're like, oh, I only did 2 modules, colder. Oh, I started so strong, but I didn't do anything, colder. Oh, I dropped off entirely and I suck at life, colder, freezing, quits feel.
Right. By the way, now you're a solid block of ice.
Yes. Whereas with Why Wait, and this is what I encourage them, instead of, oh, I only did 2 modules, I already did 2 modules, warmer. I turned up for a call and got coached, warmer. I made some little changes that I'm still doing, warmer. Like, it's all in how you frame it, and it's all how you see it. One of them has you like, yes, I'm taking one step in front of the other. And like, it's funny, back to teach what you most need to know with my whole website thing. I was like, this is going to be done. It's going to be fine. It really was one step in front of the other, warmer, warmer, warmer. I knew the website was coming. I really let go. So like the last round of my program, the reason I wanted it done when I did, was I launched my program. So like I launched a program with no website, literally nothing. And I was like, nobody's going to buy it and everyone's going to think you suck and you're not professional and whatever. Everything's just a story. It was my equal to biggest round ever with nothing available to know what it is. Like people are like, what is it? Oh, other people are like, yeah. So when you feel called, when you feel this is the thing, you don't need to have the times, the dates, the calls. Like that's just all the mind drama that we tend to spin out on. Not enough, too much, whatever. But the heart or the energy of putting myself first, taking these actions, being in a group of women who are also prioritizing themselves and celebrating the most ridiculous things like putting my sneakers on or sitting on the floor. That is expansive. That's a warmer. Your best gets to get better. And then after the autumn or fall, we have the winter, which is the break between rounds. Like for me, obviously, I facilitate it, so I'm back every single round.
Right.
But often people come back or they take a couple of rounds off. But when they do come back, they're back into another cycle, another spring.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Thank
And
you.
I'm going to make sure that all the links to all of your things. Check out the new website. It's in the show notes,
Yes.
right? So that they can find you. And I love the seasonal aspect of it. That's very cool. And I like that you've structured it for them, but also for you, my note coach
Yes.
friend. So before we bid our friends adieu, do you have any final fabulous words of wisdom?
I really like to say it's another quote. I'm all for quotes. I think
I love them.
I always kind of butcher them slightly. Like, so they're Susisms, but it was said by Sophia Bush, and she's like, you can be both a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time. So often we think, oh, not good enough, haven't done enough, or whatever. It's like there's this version. Like for me, my program, the other thing about it, I run it live. So like at the end of this last round, like I'll do a share of my best gets to get better, masterpiece, and working in progress at the same time. Last round of Wait, I taught a new concept. It didn't quite land. So I was like, oh, I'll do a bonus module and I'll clarify it. So then I actually cut into my time and I didn't break between rounds. And I've paid for that this round, me personally. This time, once again, taught this concept. Everyone's like, this is fire. What about this? And I've been like, oh, yeah, it could get better. Instead of adding on a bonus module and extending into my break time, I've been like, next round, we're going to take this and we're going to go even better. So because when I used to learn new things, I always used to beat myself up. Perfect example of the last round. Oh, here's how I could have done it better. Guilt, shame, add on, drain from me. Whereas this round, I'm like, yes, what I taught at the time was the best I knew. And now based on these insights or these questions, it's going to get better. That was a masterpiece and also a work in progress. And I think in life, if we have that attitude rather than coulda, shoulda, woulda and trying to make up for something that was still good, then we just have this freedom and we can honor our needs and our need for rest, as well as doing the best we can for our clients.
That's amazing because we're always a work in progress, right? Always.
And it's
Perfect.
have flaws. Like my kitchen table, I love, but it's got this big like crevice in the wood, but it's still a masterpiece, and I love it because it makes it part of it. Like your crack or that kintsugi or whatever, where they put the gold in the thing.
Yes. Wabi
Yeah,
sabi.
that makes you. Yes.
Totally. That's awesome. And that's perfect because, my friends, you are all masterpieces, and I know you're all still works in progress. Suzanne, thank you so much. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. And you enjoy your well-deserved break, my friend,
I
because
will do.
I know you'll
Thank
come
you.
back supercharged. So yes, my friends, check out the links, check out Suzanne's new website. I love the backdrop. I'm going to go look at it myself, all the new colors and things. And leave us some comments, subscribe, like, share with the world. That's what we're asking you to do because we want to help more people. And until then, my friends, peace out and stay well.